welcome to Blue Collar American. I'm Aaron Ford, and this is Paul Griffin.
How's it going, everybody?
Thanks for joining us again today, where we attempt to just talk as friends and discover...
Solve the world's problems.
Solve all the world's problems. I agree with that. But before we can do that, we have to wet our palates. So what are we drinking today, Paul?
Well, I've already been wetting mine, as you can tell. Mine's half gone, but before the video started, Aaron, I had to make so my phone wouldn't stop ringing, and I had to make some business calls, and I finally looked over at Aaron and I said, Aaron, we got to crack these things because I'm thirsty and they're so good. But I brought some 10 Barrels Apocalypse IPA. They're really fantastic. They've always been a favorite of mine. Most people know what they are. They've heard of them. It's a pretty standard IPA, but they're really good. Really good.
Yes, it is very good. 10 Barrels out of Boise, Idaho, of which I was just at. So I got to go see their tap room and their brewery, and they have kind of like a restaurant area.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I love it over there. I love to go over there and visit the different breweries, and I like Payette. I'm a real big Payette fan. Yes. I like Grand Teton, some of those other ones. So yeah. I brought you that Grand Teton. That's the Mexican lager. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I really think so. I compared those with Jonathan the other night. Jonathan's my son. He's my oldest son. And we were at my house, and I got some Dos Equis. Mm-hmm. Some Dos Equis lager, the light lager. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the difference is in the names of them, but
well, they're both Dos Equis, but then there's the lager, and then there's the amber.
Amber, that's right. So both very good. I mean, I've had them both, absolutely love them. But I got the lager on purpose because I got the Grand Teton Mexican lager, and they said that's kind of what they modeled it after. One of the guys at the store I was buying it, so I was like, okay, well, I'll try them because one's from Mexico, one's from Idaho. May as well try them out and see which one. So, and that's a fact. In fact, before you crack the one I brought, it might do you some good to go get one of those Dos Equis lagers and just compare them side by side. The Dos Equis it's a lot milder. You can tell it's been filtered a lot, but it tastes just like the Grand Teton. I actually love the Grand Teton because you can taste all the notes that they were going after in that beer, and I think they did that on purpose. They left it a little dirty, and so it's really good though. I'd highly recommend it. So you'll have to tell me what you think next week when we reconvene.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll go grab a 6-pack of those and share them with my son. He's recently 21 and enjoys all the things that I enjoy as well, and so he likes to kind of taste test things, and he's got himself a couple of bottle things and is mixing some drinks at dinner time every once in a while, and so kind of enjoying that as well. Well, got to be careful with that, of course.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not setting the best example for him.
Well, it depends, I guess. It's all things in moderation.
Including moderation.
Right. Exactly. Yep. But no, I think I actually put a touch of lime in there too. And Melissa turned me on something. So with nothing beats fresh lime. Okay. Right. I'm going to precursor what I'm about to say with that. But she got this freeze-dried lime.
The powder in the bags, right? Yeah. Yes. I've seen those.
It's fantastic.
They do lemon and lime, and I think they even do an orange one.
Yep. And it's absolutely fantastic. So that's what I used.
We're going to have to figure out that name, touches. But I've heard good things about it. We were actually watching a video on, I think it was Instagram or something, and they highlighted those, and they talked about them, but I cannot recall the name of that brand right now. Maybe we'll dig it up and put it in the show notes. Yeah. But yeah, I've heard amazing things. It's literally just the raw fruit, but it's been dehydrated.
Freeze-dried, yep. Mm-hmm. Freeze-dried and then powderized. And it's literally just like you're taking a lime from off the grocery. Yep.
And just squeezing it right
in the beer, yep.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how some of those lagers actually, especially Mexican lagers, do taste... They don't ever taste bad per se, so I can't say better, but having put some lime in them, it just kind of really opens that stuff up, the acidity of the lime, and then, of course, the lime flavor helps just open up that lager, wherein no other beer does that necessarily do the same. And then they do They do similar things with orange in some beers,
Like blue,
shandies
like the
and
Belgians.
Belgian white ales like Blue Moon. And,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
And I tried lemon. I tried it with both. She's got both. She's got the lime and she's got the lemon you talked about. And I tried it with both, and I actually kind of liked the lemon. And I know I like lemon with Corona, but I actually like the lemon a little better too. So that, you might try it with both and see what you think.
That'd be interesting.
So, but I'm super curious to see what you think of it, because you and I are. We love doing that. That's kind of what we do. We like to taste the different beers, and it's so much fun. So there's so much craft involved with it. People don't realize what goes into it, but
I agree.
Just so much. So
yeah, there's so many of those things that, like, it's kind of what we've started to showcase here on this is just beers that we like, that we've started to kind of go down that road of craftsmanship in beer making, because Tap and Fill here in town has 40 taps and we're constantly rotating. And so I'm learning a lot of things just tending bar one night a week.
right.
But I've also learned from our Rocky Mountain area beer fests, just all the breweries that are right over here in the Pacific Northwest states.
There's so many.
There's
People
a lot of
don't
breweries
realize
here.
how many there are.
Yeah, and it's not just IPAs, because like everybody seems to think that IPAs are the only way to
Right.
judge whether or not you can market your brewery very well, is whether
That's
or not you get an
exactly
IPA. But there is a plethora of
Yes.
great beers in this area, and I'm just learning that, and I'm actually wanting to be one of the beer fest judges. I want to learn how to do that as well. There's a specific way to taste all those things, and you learn what all the things are that you're tasting based on learning how a beer is made and each of the different kinds of beers.
Yeah.
And then you expand that to all the other crafts, per se, in the vices even, but wine, whiskeys, vodkas,
Right.
gins, cigars.
There's so
There's
much.
just all kinds of things that we as men are made fun of for our little vices. But to be honest with you, as even to your comment, everything in moderation, including moderation, is still true, in that you can appreciate man's craftsmanship, another man's craftsmanship, while you are a craftsman as well.
Yes.
As long as you're not exuding and exceeding.
Well, and people don't realize that either, Aaron. I mean, the people, a lot of people look at guys like you and I. We enjoy this. Once or twice a week, we'll go out, we'll do this, we'll hang out, we'll have a couple, maybe 2 or 3. And that's the thing, is we never overdo it. We haven't overdone it since we started.
It's been like 2 or 3 hours that we'll sit and chit chat and maybe get through 2 beers.
Right.
Especially if you do it in little guys and you're just tasting a whole bunch of them.
That's what you taught me how to do.
Even
that.
when you're adding that all up, that's not even 2 full pints, or it's just at 2 full pints. And so
that's exactly right.
You're just
tasting
things for their quality. And
that's right. Yeah, I loved when you taught me how to do that. Like, Paul, just get the quarters or get the halves, and you can taste a whole bunch, and you're only really having 2 or 3 beers, and it's really awesome. And so, that's one of the things. But so many people get the wrong impression. Like, they see guys that are going out and doing this stuff, and it's just like they automatically equate, just like you're talking about your son having a little mixer once in a while with dad, or like my son having a beer with dad. I mean, and the first thing a lot of people will hop to, we kind of feel compelled to say, not setting the best example, but at the same time, we kind of are, because we're teaching them to do it responsibly and not to.
Some would even say the finer things.
Yes, absolutely.
There are gentlemen's club. My chair keeps rubbing against my desk. Excuse me. Groups of men who have gathered. I can't just say get gentlemen's clubs, because that brings unfortunate connotations to the wrong kind of gentlemen's clubs. But the gentlemen who aspire to the finer things in life, that's what I'm referring to. Learning, like what we just said, the cigars, the whiskey, and sitting around in nice leather chairs and just talking about real life. And so that's really all that we're even doing here.
One of the things that made me think about this, what we're talking about now too, Aaron, is I was looking over here at now that whiskey there that you've got sitting on the shelf. He's got a couple of nice whiskeys sitting on the shelf here behind the camera, but one of them that I picked up was a bourbon that was made. And I know, before I say this, bourbon's not bourbon unless it's in Kentucky. or Tennessee. Some would say just Kentucky.
Some would say just Kentucky, right?
But I did pick up a bourbon from Wyoming. And this is a prime example of something having a craft, something being a fine, like a fine wine or a fine whiskey or, whatever you're into. So I picked up this bourbon from Wyoming. It comes from the Wyoming Whiskey Company or something like that. I think that's where it's
Their
from. I think I
logo is
got
literally just a couple of W's stacked over the top of each other.
Right, right. And I saw it. We're in Idaho, so they're our next door neighbor. I saw it in our local liquor store. I'm like, I got to try it. It's not bourbon because it's in Wyoming, but I got to try it. And it's turned out to be one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. But I got to reading about this company, and this is what makes it go from ordinary into something fine. This company pulls the water to make that bourbon from an artesian well that's over 1,500 feet deep. And the water from this well hasn't seen the light of day since the Bronze Age.
Right.
Now, if you're just drinking a glass of that water, it's just water. But if I turn it into a fine bourbon from Wyoming, and I bottle that, and I set it on a shelf, and that's what people don't realize. A lot of our whiskeys, a lot of our liquor cabinets are full of 5, 10, 15-year-old whiskeys, and it's not so when I turn that water into something like that, it just goes from ordinary water to a 1,500 foot deep, 2,000-year-old water that's made into this bourbon that people around the world love.
I 100% agree with you. I think that the ability to read minimally just that on the side of the bottle, but also when you dig a little deeper into the history of the company and why they're doing what they're doing, and how they're doing it, really gives you an appreciation for those very same things. And it enhances even the flavor that your mind now allows your mouth to taste, because you're understanding that somebody took a lot of time to make this, and they did it with a very specific intention. And they did it, and sometimes they'll give you tasting notes. Same with beer. They'll give you tasting notes, and they'll give you what they were aspiring to, or what they were imitating, or what they were, the time of year, or the time of the decade, what kind of plants were being used.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because
and it's
that
just
story,
amazing.
Yeah, that story adds so much to what you're tasting.
And from a marketing perspective, pardon me, but that's just the way I think about things.
Sure.
If you just tasted that whiskey and you never found any history or any information about that company or how that whiskey was made or where the water came from, it wouldn't mean as much to you.
Right.
And so we spoke a couple of episodes ago about believing and needing to believe in something, or someone to believe in you. That really goes to the core of what a company does when they are expressing their craft, or as an artisan themselves, expressing the craft that we make. If that story wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to talk about it right here, right now. And
absolutely,
you wouldn't then spread the good word to somebody else saying, have you tried this? It may not be bourbon from Kentucky, but the recipe is bourbon recipe.
Yeah.
It has, 51% this and 49% that, and it's barreled and bonded or whatever the case may be. But the water from where it came is like nowhere else.
It's a lot better than Kentucky water, I guarantee you that.
That's very true. I mean, there's a lot of contaminants over on that side of the country.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, even talking about the whiskeys that I've got sitting on the wall or on the shelf right here, these are both from Grand Teton whiskey, Grand Teton Distillery, and they're out of Driggs, Idaho.
Okay.
And I've actually been to their tasting room and their distillery shop twice now.
I think you were telling me that.
I did it in August with my wife for our anniversary. We took a little weekend away, and we went there, and we went to a brewery, Citizen 33, and they have a restaurant in there as well, and they also offer a couple of ciders that...
Citizen 33, that sounds like one of your... what do you call those that you've been trying to talk me into visiting with you? Speakeasy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Kind of sounds like a
Citizens
little speakeasy,
33.
Yeah. Highway 33, and then Citizens of Idaho, and so it's kind of interesting. And then their logo is the shape of Idaho, and it looks like a road sign, like a highway sign. But that's just the other thing too, is all these little spots have these little stories.
Sure.
that when they tell those stories and then you learn about them, you become bonded to them. You become like part of that story. Because I got to go check this guy out. I got to go see this spot. I got to go taste these whiskeys directly from them at their little bar top.
That's
you know?
right.
And so we then did it again. We liked it so much and wanted to get out of town when my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, my wife's sister and her husband and their kids came for Thanksgiving a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, did you guys go up there with
And
them?
we went again.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was just so great. And we sat there at the bar
Did
and
they like
talked
it?
to it. Yes, they had a great time.
It's a beautiful area of the country. It really
Yes.
is.
And the drive from here to there is just spectacular.
Once you get past Ryrie, it just starts getting pretty. You know,
I mean, there is some beauty in those rolling hills.
There is.
As well,
There is,
especially
yeah.
this time of year as that frost kind of hits it. And then as the snow starts to come, which snow is very late this season.
It is.
But as that snow starts to
Freezing
kiss the
fog.
ground, and freezing fog last night was amazing.
Yeah, they had a bunch of wrecks on the highway too. It took like an hour and a half to get like from here to Pocatello. That's only 45 miles from where we're at, and so that's like
that road to Pocatello is nasty.
kind of treacherous.
Anyways, squirrel moment.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I do that
the
all the
drive
time.
out there was something for them to see because they're from Arizona, and so like just getting out of the house, which we're all very fine just sitting here and enjoying each other's company and making great food and making good cocktails and sipping on things together, but to just get out and go do something different was really great. So we went to West Side Yard, which is a little gastro pub right there in Victor, built by a local motorcycle shop here in town in Idaho Falls. Originally, they're a chop shop. Yeah. Right
is that
there
the
off
one
of
that was
Yellowstone.
on Yellowstone Highway up there? Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yep. And I think they've sold it since, but it's still all the same stuff. But there's a really nice backyard for activities during the summertime. They got stringed lights and grass area and picnic benches, and there's an old bus that's back there, and they serve beer out of the back of that. But it's just really cool. So we went there for a beer and some appetizers, and then we bounced over to another spot, and then we ended up at, I can't remember the second spot. We ended up at the Distillery, Grand Teton Distillery. Had a great time just sitting there talking with one of the employees who was serving us and our little tasters, and then we ran down to Citizen 33 and had a really nice dinner.
That's
and
awesome.
Some good beers.
Pretty good food there?
Very good.
Okay.
It's like as if there's an executive chef there. Like
well, I talked you into going up to
stuff.
Melvin. So Melvin's on the road up there too. You can get up there, pass through Alpine.
Instead of turning left to go over the pass into Victor Driggs, you just keep going through Swan Valley and get to Alpine in Wyoming.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And you can get there too if you go all the way up to Alpine, through Alpine into Jackson, which is a really cool loop.
Hoback Junction and
it's a really cool loop. You go up to Jackson and
gorgeous
boy, that's
drive.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's probably one of my favorite parts of the entire world. Yeah, I can understand why Jackson has turned into like this expensive trap because
civilization and tourism right there. And it originally started as a ski town, but as people came in, the cowboy town element of it.
Yeah.
Is its own attraction for its own purposes.
Probably originally started as an old cowpoke town.
Mm-hmm. Probably was a trading post.
Yeah. Do you know there's actually some history behind the Jackson Ski Hill from what I understand. So when our soldiers went over to, this is a little bit of a squirrel moment, but I'll be brief. So when our soldiers went over to Europe to fight in Europe, they had a ski soldier squad over there in the mountains, so they skied through the mountains on these cross-country skis with their guns strapped to their back and their packs and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, when the war ended, the soldiers didn't want the skiing to end. They loved it because they were doing telemarketing. They were skiing downhill with cross-country skis on, and they loved it. They had so much, and they got good because they were on skis so much. Well, they didn't want it to end, so they got back here, and one of the first places that they started was just 10 miles east of Aspen. And then the Aspen ski hill opened, and it was all downhill from there. But
pardon the pun.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. So, but Jackson has some roots with that too, because a lot of them, it just kind of skiing blew up right through that time period. Skiing really blew up in America, and so. Anyway, but I bet that Jackson started out more as I'm betting probably something to do with cattle. It was probably, and that's why it's kind of like a cowboy town. That's
Yep.
why it's always had the cowboy shows and everything
Yep.
else. We ought to dig into that and look at a little bit more history on
I
Jackson,
do enjoy
Wyoming.
being there. I really do. I don't like being just another tourist there.
I don't either.
But I do like the
I
town.
love the diversity.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that places like that bring, that you and I have talked about, that we crave so much, is you get a little bit of diversity. That's Boise. You got to talk about your trip to Boise.
I'm telling you.
You got to talk about your trip to
I mean,
Boise.
that's a great segue to it, is that, my wife and I, last weekend, well, actually it was 2 weekends ago now, excuse me, doesn't matter. We took a 3-day trip over to Boise, and we just did some kind of couples goal setting and planning for what we wanted to do in our marriage, what we wanted to do in our family with our children, because they're transitioning as well into adulthood, and what that means
you just
for
said transitioning.
In the traditional sense.
Sorry. We got to have some fun.
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Cheers to that.
Here's to transitioning. Speaking of which, I'm not going to be shy. I'm going to open another one.
Crack another one, my friend. It is actually quite delicious. It's kind of like a meal in a cup, to be honest with you. It's got a lot of complexity to it. Anyway, Boise, we went over there because we'd never been. We've lived in Idaho Falls now for, in just 2 months will be 6 years. So 5.5 plus years.
Can you believe
that? And we hadn't ever been over to Boise, to the other side of the state. So we just kind of spur of the moment decided to just roll out. Took care of, the kids just took care of themselves and the pets, and then we're like, that's it, we're going.
Yeah.
My work situation is fragile at best. Transition to a new job, of which starting date won't be until January sometime, for the National Laboratory. So we did
happy you got that.
Some goal setting. We did some just introspection, just kind of literally sitting intentionally talking to each other about some stuff without the distractions of, I got to go make dinner, I got to go fold the laundry, I've got to go do a little thing out in the front yard, whatever the case may be. It was actually really, really good.
Good.
So alongside that, we also got to go see a couple of things that I had someone had referred to me, some places to go check out. And so the first night that we were there, we went and checked out 3 cocktail bars, or speakeasies, however you want to call them. Absolutely gorgeous, spectacular, high quality
for Idaho
environments. And yeah, this is Idaho.
Yeah.
But my gosh, I was very impressed. We went to 3 of these spots, and I felt like I teleported into 3 different genres of life and time. And it's still just Boise,
Twilight
Idaho.
Zone. Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Then the next...
But that's what diversity brings.
Right. Now, I was explaining this to somebody else in the same context of what we're talking about here. I originally wanted to call it diversity. But I'm also thinking that it's not so much just diversity for the kinds of people that are there and where they come from, but rather the culture. So there is culture. Not a culture, but in the English language we have some breakdowns, some things that don't quite define what we're trying to say with the same word.
Yeah.
But having culture in a town or in a group of people versus a culture, which is like a group of people that is predominant over a society.
Yep.
That was not what we saw, the latter definition. The primary definition, meaning included in the culture element of what we're talking about, is the diversity thing that you're talking about. There was a plethora of different kinds of people, different walks of life, different places that they're coming from, different things that they're doing. It's a college town. It's our capital of Idaho, and it's a little big city, as they say.
It is.
Big, tall towers, without being as tall as they are in Los Angeles or Chicago or whatever. But you still have that office
and you can
structure.
Get there without waiting for 2 hours to get there. You can drive there.
Yep.
You can actually drive downtown and get through. I mean, it slows down.
I mean, compared to what I lived in when I lived in California, and you drive, and I'm only 45. Well, 55 to 80 miles away from downtown Los Angeles, but it takes me 2 hours to get that far because of traffic, versus it's 4 to 4.5 hour drive through just Idaho country, and especially this time of year when it was all white. Yeah. Man, that was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Middle of summertime, that's kind of a different story.
Yeah.
It's a little boring, but man, we had full conversation in the car the whole way. That 4 hours just flew by.
That's what I was
flew
saying.
By.
Usually when you get to talking with your family or whatever, it's just like you don't even realize
no
it.
thing.
Well, it's not stressful. It's not stressful driving either. Like when you're I'm sure when you're back at
traffic
home,
is highly stressful.
It's stressful. Yeah, it really is. When you're just looking at the countryside and talking to your wife, I mean,
yep.
Yeah, just like that.
But boy, I remembered being there, remembered a lot of places that I've lived in California, many different cities. And it really reminded me of that. But I also still knew that I was in Idaho. I knew that I was still just a hop, skip, and a jump over to country, because we got to go visit our dear friends who used to be our next door neighbors for almost 9 years in California. Literally next door neighbors.
That's awesome.
And so they live on that side of the state now. And they have a little 3-acre plot of land. He runs a dog training company. That's whose logo you saw on my screen before. And FowlerCanineAcademy.com. Plug for you, Jake.
Plug. Yep, there you go.
Put you in there so that somebody can refer there. If somebody picks this up out of Boise, he's in Middleton. Just a wonderful little family. And it was like we just picked up right where we left off when we got to go see them. So we stepped out for a minute on Sunday afternoon into the evening, and then came back into town and went to another brewery. As a matter of fact, that night we came to 10 Barrel and sat in their tasting room and brewery. And
it's different off the tap, fresh off the tap like that. I noticed that when I was over at Payette, they had this beer called Rodeo. They've discontinued it since then, but absolutely loved it.
It's on the wall still in their signs, because the next day, Monday, midday, we went, and it has like the 2 6-cans. And I'm looking all over for it. I'm looking in their coolers, because they have long, wide things of coolers in there.
Yep.
Couldn't find it. I was looking and looking and looking.
Yeah, it's discontinued. I wish it was. I actually called him. I was so upset I called him. I had a guy, I sold a boat, and he actually traded me like 4 cases of Rodeo because it was gone for my boat. And I knocked off like $500 for those 4 cases. I was like, oh man, he was like, I'm a driver, I'm a distributor. I've got cases of that stuff. I'm like, oh.
Well, sometimes these breweries will bring old recipes back.
I hope they do. But my point is that, I went to Payette and I had that on tap, and right straight from the brewery, and it's so much different, than, I think it is anyway. I can notice a huge difference. Like, even this right here is a little harsher from the can than it is from the tap.
Well, an IPA specifically will age in the can because of all the botanicals in them. Mm-hmm. The hops themselves have some age that happens even when it's in liquid form, whereas the malts and barleys and those kinds of things don't age as quickly.
That makes sense.
IPAs actually have faster expiration dates than other beers do.
Yeah, what was it we tried that
that was a Hefeweizen.
Did we try that on camera? I can't remember if we did or not.
No.
I don't think we did.
I don't think so. I opened up one of those cans that was free to me for serving at the beer fest last year, and I was like, I'm going to open up a Hef for Paul, and he's like,
I was trying not to be rude. I'm like,
something wrong with this.
You smelled it, and you're like, oh
my gosh, I'm sorry. Bad. Give that back.
Yeah, I'm weird about Hefeweizens. I've got to try them. If it's a good Hef, absolutely love it. The problem with Hef is that sulfur undertone. If they don't get rid of that, and I've noticed most of them are now, so that must be a pretty common complaint.
It has to do with the length of time, or the too short of a time of their brewing process.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine water has a lot to do with it too.
That might as well.
Because I remember when I was going to school up at the University of Idaho, one of the things they have a hard time controlling up there is the sulfur in their water, because they have bacteria that secretes sulfur. And so it's just natural in their water supply up there.
Yeah.
And so they have to constantly battle that.
That makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, that's I probably wouldn't like a hef from Moscow, Idaho.
Maybe not.
But
Maybe not. We've also, I brought some cans of some things home. So I realized that we went to 4 breweries. I misspoke. We went to Mother Earth.
Okay.
Which is what we have a regular on at Tap and Fill called Cali Creamin'. It's a vanilla cream ale. I got to actually taste that on Nitro, and I actually like it. I don't care for
I was gonna say I'm not a huge fan.
I don't care for the Cali Creamin' by itself. But anyway, got there, and I've got a brown from them that I got in a can. So I brought a can home for the 2 of us to share. We went to Lost Grove, so the very first beer that we talked about, that porter.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of those cans. I've already drank 2 of them, so there's 4 left to share with you, which is this tiny little
You make me. I get jealous of all your travels. Like
my travels.
He takes this picture. He's sitting in Wallace, Idaho,
yes.
having one of our favorite beers that we've had. That amber they have, red.
Red Light.
Red Light. So good. Sorry, but yeah, all your traveling. Then
I have a lot more things I want to do than. Yeah. But it was fun to do it with my wife because we didn't have our underage children with us, so we could kind of linger a little bit.
Yep.
So anyway, this Lost Grove spot, which it's just like this little pizza parlor looking thing, and it's right in the middle of the college dorm life over there. What's that school? University of Boise State.
Boise State BSU. University. Yep, at BSU. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the college part of the town, and it's just like you meander through all these 3 and 4, 5-story apartment buildings, and there it is in the middle of it all.
The dorms,
yep. Anyway, so
that's cool. I didn't realize they were there.
And eat a pizza, and then we went to 10 Barrel later that night, and then the next day we went to Payette. Okay. So I've got little samples of each of those.
Did you get stickers from all of them?
No, I didn't get any stickers.
Should have got stickers.
I know. I've actually got plenty of stickers from all the tap takeovers, so I could probably pull it out. But I got beer directly from them.
I've still got a grip of stickers, too, since from the time I've known you and we've kind of hung out over there. We've always hit the tap takeovers.
Yep, now I'm running out of place to put these stickers, so we've got to find something, I need a beer fridge or a bar or something to just, that's all specifically those kinds of stickers.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't want to put them on your car because they'll fade for one. For two, it's like
not really a sticker on my.
That guy's a drinker, so I'm going to pull him over. Says the police officer. Yeah. Although I would never do that nor condone that. Anyway, so it was.
Jonathan got pulled over the other day.
Whoops.
He got pulled over in his driveway. Then they made up some story. Oh, you don't have mud flaps or whatever. It's like anything they could come up with. They were just drunk checking him, But I mean, and that happens. It happens. They're going to do that. But they pulled him over, and they were sadly mistaken.
In his own driveway, he ended up.
His own driveway. Yeah. He's pulling right off the road, and the cop followed him right in there, and Jonathan starts getting out of his truck, and he's like, "Oh no, you stay in your truck." It's like, oh my gosh, they had Riley was in the back crying, but anyway, yeah. Jonathan's a good kid,
I think Idaho Falls police officers are just looking for something to do because there's nothing going on.
Well, what's funny? He says, "What you guys been out doing tonight?" And he's like, "Taking my family out to dinner, Texas Roadhouse." And he says, "Did you drink anything tonight?" And Jonathan's like, "Yeah, had a beer." Well, what'd you have? And he says, "A Kona Big Wave." And he's like, "Well, what's in that?" And Jonathan was like, "Beer." Man, and if you're
obviously a police officer of the prevailing culture, I'm using that word again.
I was going to say for our audience, if you live in Idaho Falls, you understand that somebody might think something else is in
what's a Kona Big Wave? Only one of the most popular.
It's like anyway
light beers that there is. That's not Bud Light or Budweiser.
It was just funny the way Jonathan told me. You know how Jonathan is. He's like, the cop says like, "So what's in that?" And he's like, "Beer." Right after I said I had a beer.
I'd be like, well, wheat, barley, maybe some citrus.
There might be something from the Big Island in there too. I don't know. It's
maybe some pineapple hints. No, that's not what I mean. Gee whiz.
But it was pretty funny. Yeah. Anyway, he didn't catch him. Of course, because Jonathan, that's another thing you and I advocate so much too to everybody. You don't drive, you don't drink and drive. I mean, we don't do that kind of stuff. It's just like I said, one or two, and things are fine. But the laws are always followed, and so it's nice to have my boy, get pulled over like that and be able to say, hey, have a nice night, officer. And remember, beer is beer. Doesn't have anything else in it.
Yeah, no, nothing else. Wow.
But
I think that just along those crafts, I mean, I think that I got a map actually of Idaho, of all the breweries that are in Idaho. So I was able to check them all off, the ones that I had been to, because it shows a big old map with all the dots and they're all numbered, and then it shows you a list of.
Where'd you get that?
I picked it up at Mother Earth.
Oh,
no,
cool.
I saw it at Mother Earth, and then at one of the other shops, Lost Grove, there it was as in a flyer form, because when it unfolds on one side, it's a poster of the state.
Oh, that's neat.
And so then that night, Luis and I were just sitting there, and I just was like, we've been there, and I've been there. Oh, the Wallace one way over here, and been to this one. And then she's like, well, where's Melvin? Why isn't Melvin on there? That's because it's right on the other side of the border in Wyoming, not in Idaho.
That's right.
She's like, oh.
Alpine. That's right. I wouldn't even thought of that.
Yeah, it's literally right on the border, but it's on the Wyoming side.
You'd think they'd call them out anyway and say like, and over here, just on the other side.
No, they're proud. They're proud of their Wyoming heritage, and then the same with Roadhouse. And now that Melvin and Roadhouse are conjoined, very proud of their Wyoming.
Yeah. I was going to tell you, too, if you get back up to the Wallace area again, when you can spend a little more leisure time, that was more for work, I think, for you, wasn't it?
It was always passing through.
Yeah.
It was like I had to get to my brother's wedding ceremony, and then we were on our way to our little family
I still don't think the housing does real good up there. I still think you can buy a house there.
I think you could get a good house and just kind of turn it into a
Airbnb while you're gone, place to stay when you want to get away. That's what I was thinking too.
It's so beautiful up there.
It's so beautiful,
man. Just in that valley of that mountain, and
it's
all those trees and the old late 1800s architecture.
Do you know they filmed that one show up there, Dante's Peak?
Really?
Yes, Dante's Peak was filmed in not Kellogg, not Wallace.
The next town up is in the Silver Valley.
It's like the Borgia or something like that. No, that's Montana. I can't remember, but I'll have to look it up. But yeah, Pierce Brosnan and they filmed that right up there, Dante's Peak. And they got that one bridge that that scene where the bridge is getting washed out. And that the whole thing's up there, but. But if you get up there again, go all the way down to Coeur d'Alene, head north, go up to Sandpoint. You got to check out Sandpoint.
We need to keep going. We've been to Coeur d'Alene now. The first time we passed through Wallace and then through Coeur d'Alene was actually on our way to Spokane for my brothers.
Next time you guys go, we got to go with you.
Yeah.
We had a double date trip.
Take a trip. That would be amazing. And then the second time we went through was also with the children, was to get to our little family reunion.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it just kind of a little family vacation. It was all with my side of the family, and we all met.
And that turned out okay.
Yeah,
you're pretty nervous about it. Yeah, that turned out okay.
It's a little nervous, but we had a family conversation in the car and said, okay, wipe it all away.
Yep.
Start fresh.
Yeah.
We're just going to have a good time. It was hard for a few of the kids, but it just is what it is.
It always is, those things are, it's amazing how we all just kind of, and that's a modern thing, because 100 years ago, that wouldn't, it was like, of course, everybody was living pretty much the same way 100 years ago. Now there's so much divergence, there's people have this job over here, people make this money here, this money down here, and it's just, everything's kind of a, pardon the French, but everything's kind of a pissing contest, these days. Class reunions, all that stuff is just,
it's competition. We're always thinking that we have to.
That's America, though, isn't it?
The next guy. I think it is.
I can't completely speak against it because competition's good. That's what breeds innovation. But at the same time, it's challenging. It's a challenge to make things work and get along, I mean, even right in my own industry, I'm going through that right now, you know. So, but what I was going to tell you though is if you get to Sandpoint, so you go all the way to Coeur d'Alene, go up to Sandpoint, the Ponderay Winery is amazing. What they're doing with wine up there, and I love wine tasting too. That's another fine thing. The fine wines, I love to do that too.
Yep.
They have a great storefront that the Ponderay Winery does. You can buy their old barrels that they age their wine in if you want to. I mean, there's lots of cool stuff there. They've got lots of gift ideas that are, you know, it's like Sandpoint specific, and you can go down and hang out on the beach at Ponderay, or at Lake Ponderay, which, by the way, is the deepest inland lake I think in the world.
That's what I've heard.
The Navy, U.S. Navy, does their, you know, submarine practice
testing
there,
and then it's so related to INL with nuclear research that
Some think they have like underground bases, like they take their submarines out there and they go in these tunnels and they've got bases under the mountains, and some people think they do.
Wouldn't surprise me anymore.
It wouldn't.
5 years ago, that would be like, what? No way.
Yeah. But now
post-COVID and all of the things that everyone thought that anyone who would ever say anything contrary have all come true, and now it's just like, what about this? I bet somebody's got this.
That's right.
Prove it.
Do you need another one?
Let's go. Yeah, let's do it. Well, I've enjoyed this topic.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been kind of the thing that in some worlds is kind of a faux pas to talk about alcohol, but we're not actually talking about alcohol. We're talking about craftsmanship. Yeah. And that's what really speaks to me right now.
You and I talked about this like one of the first nights we hung out.
Yeah.
It's such a lost
Craftsmanship
thing.
is when you find somebody who can make something with their hands.
Oh yeah.
It's just amazing. In a world of technology that overtakes everything.
Yeah.
You want repetition, sure.
Think about all the automation with everything.
Automation is the better word for it than what I said, yes.
You know, you look at anything around us, like we like our old stuff, you know, like, but when you have somebody that actually fashions that with their own two hands and some hand tools.
Yeah.
You know, I saw this, and there's a market for that. Like this Temu. Have you heard of Temu?
I've heard a little bit about it.
All it is
one of those Chinese companies, online ordering, right?
All it is junk, and they've got all the money in the world, so they're bombarding Facebook and every place else with it.
Right.
But one of the things that I notice over and over on places like that, on sites like that, and are these, like today, I thought of you. Because I thought about our craftsmanship talks and stuff like that, and they've got one of these. It's like a wooden box, about like, you know, yay big, like that, kind of about the size, little oversized of a notebook, and this box is only about maybe that deep, and it splits. You can open it up, and the box opens up, and it has a strap on it. So inside the box, you've got some markers and paintbrushes and some chalk and some pencils and whatever else. It's like an art box.
Right.
But it's more of an art box that you would have seen 100 years ago on an African expedition.
Oh, yeah.
You know, something to protect your notebook and your...
With a leather strap on it so it goes over your shoulder.
And I thought to myself, man, that is cool. That's really cool looking. But then the shade came in. I'm like, I'll bet that was made by a bunch of kids in China somewhere at a factory.
If you saw it on Temu, then for sure.
Yeah. But I got to thinking, how cool would it be if a craftsman actually were to make something like that, you know?
I mean, and when you think about what a craftsman is doing, anything that they're doing is just intentionality. And that's what's lost in today's society, is the intentionality behind everything. Everything's just so casual, so quick, so just ready to dismiss, ready to throw away, ready to just like use and abuse and move on.
Yeah.
Whereas there's been some conversations in my past, and as a matter of fact, you're sitting next to a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Is this table that I made myself out of somebody else's wood deck
And
that
it's so cool.
had been a wood deck for over 10 years, and they sold
California.
the home in California.
And here it is in Idaho. And
yes.
Yeah.
The people that owned the home was my wife's older sister and her husband, and so we walked on that deck many a times.
Yeah.
It was built by my brother-in-law's dad, of whom I know him as well, and they sold it to mutual friends
Sure.
of ours and friends of theirs. And so they were like, well, we respect all this, but we don't need this, and we want to do something else different. And so they called me, knowing that I was a woodworker, and offered me all the lumber.
That's
so I just
cool.
went over there and it was already unscrewed and unstacked. I just put it all in my truck, and it's all redwood.
That's so neat. So
And
it's
so-
California wood too then. That's
and
awesome.
so I've made a series of tables. I've sold them to a few people, but this one happens to be one of them. Well, this was one of our early coffee tables because I didn't have a coffee table before. It looks like garbage because it was misused by my kids, you know. And this redwood is soft, so any kind of clear coating on it
It's soft.
gets beat.
It's soft, but it's pest resistant, right? Redwoods.
Correct. It's water resistant, so you could use redwood and cedar outdoors for
Okay.
things, and it won't rot.
Okay.
But I made a series
Beautiful
of tables
colors.
out of these things.
Yeah.
Well, my poor wife, right after we moved into this house 5 years ago,
Almost 6.
well, we had a rental for 1 year, so almost 5 years ago when we moved into this house, she was dusting and she stood up on something else and fell on this table and broke it right in half. Just
Really?
and up until 2 days ago, this thing was apart on top of my refrigerator for the last 4 years.
You're kidding me.
And I just glued it back together because I found myself with some time. And now I'm going to go and take it and resand it and refinish it so that it doesn't look like it's got a bunch of
You're finding your love for
coffee
woodworking
mugs
again. I
and-
love that.
Oh man, it's just about time.
Yeah.
And I haven't had time in years.
You will now,
And as a
too.
matter of fact, the thing that you just saw when we came in here, that little lantern
So
box
cool.
that I made out of pallet wood, that's what started all my woodworking stuff. And most of the furniture in our home is made by me, not the couches, obviously.
I love that
But-
table you got behind your couch in your living room.
I've got that,
cool.
and I've got, all kinds of things that I've made. And it's because I need to use my hands. I need to be artistic and creative. I want to learn new things, and so I'm figuring it out. But it gets me into this place where I can understand, to get back to my original premise, that when I'm out in the garage working, whether it's really cold out, 30 degrees, and I'm wearing gloves and a jacket because I'm freezing, or it's the middle of summer, it doesn't matter. It's that I'm in touch with natural elements and I'm making something that nobody else has.
Yeah.
Or I'm replicating what somebody else has. So that lantern, that kind of like entryway lantern that I made that I showed you, and I'll take a picture of it and put it on the show notes so you guys can see. And I'll take a picture of this table.
Good. Yeah, I was going to suggest that. I was like, you got to take, better than a picture, maybe you just did a little video.
I can do a little video.
I think that'd be cool.
But I just saw a photo on, or Etsy, I think it was. Because I just searched for, like, what can I do with a palette?
Yeah.
And I want light.
Yeah.
So it just was a whole bunch of people's stuff, and I saw this thing. Well, I think it's about twice the size of what this other person did, but I didn't care. I wanted it to be 2 feet tall and 10 inches wide in a cube, and so it's pretty cool.
Well, maybe
and
in the future,
I just love
I
it.
become your cameraman and we get a video
go.
of you making one of
So
those.
Peyton caught on, my youngest son, who's 15 and a half, who just got his driver's permit. So
Wow.
he's driving around town with us now. Oh,
What
my
a good
goodness.
kid. He is such a fantastic kid, Aaron.
So he's out in the garage with me, and he's like not working on the project with me, but he's like, Dad, can we pull this tool out too? And he loves like knives and axes and hatchets and stuff. So
Good for him, yeah.
He's making handles for a cleaver that he got,
Yeah.
that we stripped the old handle off of the thing because it was garbage. And we're using chunks of black walnut limbs from Grandma and Grandpa's tree in the backyard
Walnut's good stuff.
that you sold the house to, which is where we met, was
Yeah.
over Ron and Christina's house.
Yeah.
And so the handles are going to be made out of this black walnut.
It's great handle. That's great
hard wood
Yep.
and really strong. So
just got to make sure the grain's right, make sure the grain's right on the back. But yeah,
so we've he was out there working with me. We made an utter mess in the garage, and today I cleaned it all up. But
that's perfect though. That's such a great
and,
story. Spend time in the garage like that with your son. I did that with a beehive that I made with Thomas.
Oh yeah.
I think I told you. I don't know if I did or not, but I got pictures of an old beehive. I made a top bar beehive because we got into bees for a while.
That's something that Luis and I have been talking about wanting to get into ourselves. Even just putting a hive out in the backyard.
You'll love it.
Yeah.
You'll love it. If you get into it, you and I should talk. We should, because
I'm all about it.
Because
that's craftsmanship too, but it's taking advantage of God's creation, and bees need help.
They do need help. Yes, I love that idea. So the guy I learned from, he was a Jehovah's Witness guy, great guy here in town. His name's Kenneth. I got a shout out to Kenneth. So I apprenticed with him for a while on beehives when I was doing this top bar beehive with Thomas and everything, but. So, I don't want to squirrel too far, but it's so awesome spending time in the garage with your son like that.
Well, you're crafting together. You're working on something, and you're bonding in that respect. And that's the only premise that I'm talking about here is when the world gets so crazy and busy, sometimes you have to get back to those roots.
Yeah.
And sometimes... And that's what all the craftsmen in this world or the tradesmen and craftsmen, because sometimes those terms can be synonymous, are talking about in today's society is that those trades are being lost. And so to be able to build your own furniture, to have the creativity to see a photo and turn it into something real without a plan, or to be able to follow a plan if somebody gave you the plan. I mean, I've made Adirondack chairs and... tables and growth charts and Davenport tables and the
growth charts thing is something I made once too. I sold a few things on Etsy too. So the cowboy hats, I made like this cowboy hat rack that for a while that people just really loved, and for a little extra I'd wood burn their name on it or whatever they wanted, or their ranch name or whatever it is.
Shameless plug to Griffin Benchmark.
yeah. Well, and I haven't done that kind of stuff for a long time.
Yeah, but the channel's still there.
It is. Yeah, it is. I'm still. In fact, I just got paid on it again. I can't believe that's a whole nother subject we'll have to talk about. But it's, you're right. You're absolutely right. So many of these trades and crafts and functions that that humanity had before the computer age and the Chinese age. And, I mean. We used to do this stuff ourselves. One of the things I love to do is go over to the Army surplus. You can still find some old World War II stuff over there.
Yes.
It's hand stamped. Everything's hand stamped and handmade, and the helmets were handmade. They were hand stamped with the big machines that we have. It's just, I don't know. It's so neat to.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, there's the industrial age and then all that kind of stuff, but that's really just the next step into processing things when more population grew and the demand for something to replicate the one-off thing into 10 to 20 to 500 to 50,000 of these things. That's when the industrial age came along to help with all of that. We're not intending to get to that place as a family by any means, but when there's a time when there isn't the income coming in that is traditional income of you sitting behind a desk and clicking a mouse.
What are you going to do?
You get busy.
I did that.
You do.
That's how I learned. That was out of necessity.
That's all.
And I know that's what happened with you too.
That's exactly right.
You and I had hard. I mean, there's been hard times in our lives financially. Man. I mean, and we've talked. I mean, and I know
the similarities between your story and mine are uncanny.
Yeah. So a lot of this stuff's out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
You need a table, you make a table. You find the material to make the table.
And then let's make another 5 more and sell them.
Yeah. Right.
Because I need the cash.
Because people like it, because I need the cash. That's right. Yeah.
And it's not just some random thing. It actually has some intentional beauty, intentional design, and it's functional. Functional.
I got to ask, did you have a planer
Yeah.
to do this? Oh, that's awesome.
All of the tools in my garage,
That's awesome.
I found.
Do you have a planer now?
I do.
Oh, that's cool. I just had to throw one away because the motor went bad. I used it so much the motor went bad. And I took it to Rossier Electric because they're a great electric motor company. They're here in town, right by IBC.
Oh, okay.
I took it over there, and they fixed a lot of stuff for me. They fixed, in the old days, they fixed a drill for me. I mean, all kinds of old Black & Decker drills.
Yeah.
Remember those? People don't do that anymore either. They just throw them in the garbage. Go get another one. But I took it over to them, and I said, hey, can you do something with this? It let out a little smoke, quit working. I'm not sure what's happening. Maybe you can replace the motor. And they said, no. We can replace the motor if you want, but it's going to be like $400. And for that...
You might as well just go buy another one.
You can go get another one. So it was sad to me, but I had to throw a whole planer away. And it was a rigid planer. It was a really good planer.
Yeah, I have a DeWalt, and it's
Do you recommend DeWalt?
I do.
Do you? Okay.
I haven't kept up with them recently because it's been 7 years since I've actually used tools. I always used DeWalt originally for all of my hand tools.
Yeah.
Not hand, still like power drills and all that
Drills
kind of
and
stuff.
impacts and
But they've changed because technology has changed, the battery packs and all those kinds of things. So I've got a bunch of tools I can't use anymore because the batteries won't charge anymore and they don't support that system anymore. But I still, all the impact drills and
I went Milwaukee recently. I went everything Milwaukee. That was for Jonathan.
That's the only other thing that I would consider would be DeWalt or Milwaukee, to be honest with you.
Milwaukee, I don't think Milwaukee has a planer, but
all the other bigger
got a
tools.
Milwaukee lawnmower though.
Yeah, the battery powered one. All the other tools for all my woodworking originally were either given to me or I got them at incredible discounts, or they were at Harbor Freight, because that's all that I had. I had no money.
That's the way it was for me too. I remember my
I wanted to invest in the thing, but I also had to put food on the table. So it's kind of like.
My brother gave me my brother gave me a DeWalt drill, and I loved it. Of course, I wanted to get DeWalt everything too, but I was the same story. It's like.
So I've got this.
You always ask for your birthday, Christmas. It's like.
Yeah. Can I have a tool?
Can you get me a tool?
Isn't that amazing, though?
Yeah.
Be able to say, can I have a tool for Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, Peyton has asked specifically for a bunch of vice grips and
that's so awesome.
A clamp for the table so he can draw with his draw knife. And I want to see if we can find a certain kind of sawhorse so he can draw wood with a draw knife and all those kinds of things.
We had to make a sawhorse.
We need to make, one of those draw horses. So you push down on it.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Clamps, and then you can cut it or.
I've got the neatest walnut Boy Scout. So I bought a Boy Scout axe, or a Boy Scout axe head, hatchet head. I used to be into this. It's funny that you say Peyton loves that stuff. That's what I loved. I told you that. I think I did Boy Scout. I did Boy Scout hatchets. I did World War II hatchets. I've got one right now. I've got to finish. I did. Anyway, I did a ton of things, and so. Anyway, it's a labor of love, and we could go on and on about all this stuff, Aaron. But I've got a walnut handle Boy Scout hatchet that I'll have to show Peyton. He'll probably get a kick out of it. Yeah, and
and I'm still learning how to teach him because we're just kind of fumbling through the 3-dimensional element of a handle, for example. But he'll have to figure it out.
He will.
And we bought him a bunch of hatchet heads that are more decorative. They've got a bunch of laser etching on them, so it's more like tomahawk style heads that you would use to throw.
A boy's got to be a boy.
He's got all these crooked, long branches.
Getting the tree disc so he can maybe do some throwing in the backyard.
We've got some rounds that are about 18 inches from that I just used my chainsaw and cut up, and he was like, I'll use these to decorate, and I'm like, yeah.
That's very cool.
Anyways, my tools are really old now, but when I had them used regularly, they're not very fine as far as quality. So you have to be really, really careful and intentional, and especially with soft wood, it's easy to just and make a mistake because the saw blade's all wobbling, or you can't get a perfect 90 on your table saw because it was a gift and the crank is broken, and so you're like wedging it to hold it still. And Peyton came out last night and he's like, why is there this and this rope tapped to the, and doesn't your fence have it, what is it, because I'm holding it with clamps.
Yes.
I'm like, I know, son.
You make do.
It's just what I've got, and we're going to have to get another one. I can't afford it right now. Yeah. And
Jonathan and I used to tease when we worked on his, we've got a 69 Bronco that you know about. Have you seen that in person?
Not
yet?
In person, no.
Oh, we'll have to get that out next summer. But we always tease because it's like we tell people we changed the whole front end on that thing with a hammer and a hammer, a pair of vice grips, and a crescent wrench, you know? I mean, we didn't have pickle forks. We didn't have anything.
Right.
You know, we didn't have anything we needed, but we managed to do it. He hit a telephone pole with that thing and crunched the whole grill in. I mean, V'd the whole thing. We got insurance money back on that, and he and I, by hand, with a hammer, a carpenter's hammer, not a body hammer, we straightened that whole grill out, and we did it so well that, you know, we used little chunks of wood and we all kinds of stuff and we did it so well that, you know, a lot of the classic car guys in Montana were like, you really did that by hand?
Can't even see it anymore, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was. So I know what you're talking about. You know, table saws that you have to clamp down, and I mean, it's, you know.
So this bandsaw, we went to go split this round limb that was cut from Grandma and Grandpa's black walnut tree in the backyard, and he wants to use it to be the sheaths for his scales for his cleaver that he got from somebody else that was like 100 years old, and that's so cool. We got to grind the thing down because it's got all these like waves and divots and stuff in it. Somebody did not do it right, but he's bound and determined to figure this out. So I'm like really, really nervous to use this old bandsaw of mine.
Yeah.
And so I changed the blade and I put it in, and it worked great. It was like butter, just hot knife through butter. So fortunately, it was because it was a fresh blade. But
yeah,
there was a time in this thing where
love bandsaws.
I would turn it on and it would like make all these weird screeching and yelling noises at me, and I'm like, can I get a pair of clamps from way back here and push it through, because I don't want to step near this thing because it'll just throw the blade off.
That's so funny. It's too funny. No.
So I told him, I was like, when I went to go turn the power on, I'm like, oh, it's working.
It's okay. Stand back, son, just for a minute.
Stay over here. Put your eye protection on.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
And I got done with it, and I pushed it through, and it actually cut a really decent straight line.
That's awesome.
And so he just put it on the band sander that we've got, like another Harbor Freight tool that's just, $20 stupid thing.
That's awesome.
And it actually did a pretty good job, and I went and rolled it all up and put it all away, and I was like, I was scared to death to do that, son. He's like, I know, I could tell you were really stressed out.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. I love the idea of the sawhorse. That'll be an undertaking for you, because you'll want to be sure and do everything right. But when you build it, that'll be something Dad and Peyton made, and he'll keep it forever.
He bought this draw knife, and we had to sharpen it because it didn't come sharp.
Okay.
And so we had to figure out what tool to use out of all my woodworking tools, because I don't have metalworking tools to sharpen the thing. And we finally figured it out. And he's got this like table vise, and he's like trying to pull up on it while it's like at table height, and it just wasn't working. So now that need to be the next project. Yeah. He's like, I saw this thing online. It was just a bunch of 2x4s, and we've got a lot of 2x4s. And I was like, yeah, I do. They're all like offcuts from everybody else. And
that's what you do too, though. If you see wood,
you save it all up. And
yes. Well, you showed me that right tonight when I was looking at that little that thing that you built.
That lamp, yeah.
The lamp that you built. And I'm like, oh, what's it made out of? Pallet or barn wood? And you're like, no, pallet wood. And you're like, I got a bunch of it. And you showed me all that you got. You're the same way I was.
Store it. And
if there was pallets, I collected them. If there was construction waste, I collected it. If it was, because you can make stuff out of that.
That's how I started with all my
deck,
woodworking. It's exactly right. I would just disassemble pallets.
Yeah.
And I got to the place where I was using so much pallet wood that the way that I was disassembling it was really inefficient. And I had a metal worker back in the day build me a tool to disassemble the pallets. And it's like this like little pry fork thing with a really long pole.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just and it uses its own leverage to just pull the nails right out, and I can flip the board over and just hit the nails right out instead of me having to like cut through it or like wedge it with a crowbar.
I used a saw and just cut through it, you know.
Yeah, I was trying that, but I wanted the full length of these boards.
Yeah.
Because some of that wood is
it's fantastic.
Not all pine.
No.
It's not all oak. It's some like
they're from around the world too.
All over the world.
You get South American stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
So that table that you saw
wood
behind my couch over there, that's all made with pallet wood. That's all the hardwood out of pallets, not soft.
And it's exotic. It's like
there's some gorgeous.
There's some woods that they make. It's just it's exotic. So it really is. There's some of it that's actually, and I hate to say this. I mean, it's like, you know, like baby lamb fur, something like that. You know, but it's like it's rainforest wood. It's like rainforest hardwoods and stuff. You know that, and I mean, which is sad. I mean, I don't want the rainforest to disappear any more than anybody else does. But if there's a pallet made out of it and it's sitting in front of me, I mean, I'll preserve its memory like the whiskey, like the water, you know.
Yeah. So there was this store that I did some work for back in the day, where I would also. This was before it was popular, before Chip and Joanna Gaines ever came on the scene and turned up,
popularized everything.
Popularized everything. Yeah, I used to make a pallet wood wall. I would decorate a wall with pallet wood, whether it would be horizontal or vertical, or I even got into diagonals. And so I would just, I've talked about it. Yeah. I've thought about it. You know, we just freshly painted this so that it wasn't all beat up by a teenager, but I kind of want it to be a little darker. Anyway, side note. That's where that pry bar came into place, was to just pop these things apart real quick, get the right angles on the ends, and then mount them on the walls and do this decorative thing that had this real like barn look to it, but it's pallets, not barnwood, because there's not a lot of barns here like there are back on the on the east side of the Mississippi. As I watch this other show called Barnwood Builders.
If you're ever interested in barnwood, I've got some good barns. I know some people that.
Oh yes.
So
if they ever want to tear anything down,
they're standing. It's a whole standing barn.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Talk to me.
Okay.
So I learned a lot out of making all this stuff. Well, I went into this freelance. This was 10 years ago because I just did my background check for INL, and it just reminded me that in 2013 was when I was doing this. But I was commissioned by a guy who was tasked with kind of rebuilding this strip mall store space, because it was going to be a kind of like a secondhand shop where they would take donations and then they would sell the stuff, and all the profits would go towards a very specific cause. This one happened to be, I don't remember the name of the charity, but it was specifically to save girls out of the sex trafficking organization.
Really bad problem.
So this is back in California, and the name of the store was called Second Story.
Okay.
So it kind of like had, second story, like a construction.
Okay.
But it also had this entendre in that it was, you have a second chance to tell the story.
Oh, cool.
So it was all reclaimed clothing, and it was like
clothing and woods and everything.
All these things where they would, dishes, household items that were all donated, kind of like the Goodwill, without it being a big, organization, multi-million-dollar thing. It was just a small little shop, but it was called Second Story. And so
what a great name.
They commissioned me to take and do what I do, which was the pallet wood, and line two of their because there's like a rectangular room, long room that you come into. So one wall that would go around all these windows, and the very back wall had a full diagonal pallet wood representation. And then I took their company name and designed, because I'm a graphic designer, designed their logo in a nice little arch, and then I cut it all out of wood, and then I painted it and distressed it so that it had contrast away from the pallet wood. I'll show this photo in the notes as well. It's in my Instagram.
I hope you made some money on that.
Well, it turned into a job.
Yeah.
Because I was.
Oh, you mean like a regular job with them?
Not with Second Story, with the guy who was commissioned to do it.
Okay.
I got a construction job out of it all. And I got a truck out of the whole process.
That illustrates exactly what we're talking about, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And literally, I loved the fact that, and to tie this all back together and to close down our show, unless you have something else to say, but that
one more thing after we get
wood
done.
has a second story. Otherwise, it would have been thrown away. So it was saved out of one purpose and put towards another purpose. And there are many other things.
California redwood.
Many other things in my home that have a second story about them. And so that was kind of like my little spiritual guideline behind me working on my wood is I'm taking things that would have been thrown away and I'm giving them a new life. And I'm using my own skill set that I was thrown away from a job, and I'm turning it into something that can still glorify God. And I can be creative through it as well.
Yeah,
and
so
so
cool.
that whole like reclaimed, repurposed, reused mindset that requires to learn a craft, but also to tell a story.
That's so awesome, Aaron. That's probably the most moving thing we've talked about thus far as I'm concerned. I look at that table and I think about it. It's like that does tell a story. I mean, it tells a story about your family. It tells a story about the time in your life you made it.
Yeah.
That's another thing I love. Is there's so much to it. Yeah. This is why it's so important to teach our kids.
It is
to work with their hands. I have things from my grandfather that he and I have his tools. He etched his name into his tools.
Yeah.
Just little stuff. I mean, it just means so much. Well, I wanted to end with something before we end our show. We have the new year approaching. And I've kind of touched on this with you. I've put on some weight. People can probably see that, from our first video till now. I've put on a significant amount of weight. I won't discuss it, but
I'm not
the first thing
making any comments.
The first thing we think about when I would love to say it. I would love to say it's probably fat weight, but a lot of mine is a health thing.
I 100% agree with you.
So
you gotta give yourself a little bit of a break. But you also have a woman in your life who loves to cook.
She loves to cook. Yeah, it's like I go home and she's like, "Try a bite of this." I'm like, "Honey."
What's that they say? Weight of a man's heart is through his stomach.
Oh,
and you're like, but my stomach is getting bigger and bigger, but my heart is not.
My heart's getting bigger.
Maybe it is physically.
Yeah, you don't want your heart to enlarge.
No.
But anyway, so the new year's approaching. I don't know how many more shows we'll get out before then. But I've decided that, and I've talked to you about the exercise portion. I was going to say the first thing we always go to is the weight, the exercise. Yes, I mean I'm working on that too. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm trying to do it before the new year because I don't want to be one of those New Yearsers. It's
one of those things that I haven't actually talked about specifically either, but part of our little husband-wife plan. And then my brother-in-law, who we were talking about earlier, has he shook my hand and said we're going to be accountability partners, and we've listed out a month's worth of goals. And on that is that I'm intending to lose 10 pounds in a month's time, starting December 1st. I've only just changed my diet specifically. I haven't actually gone to the gym because my financial elements of things have changed, and so buying a gym membership right now really sucks.
You don't need that.
So I'm doing push-ups and sit-ups and
just so everybody knows, I'm telling him to come to the gym with me in the morning.
I know.
Got to get him over there.
Anyway, he went and just immediately bought a gym membership, but he's in a different place in life than I am right now, and I am super proud of him for that because if you knew his story, it's a different.
We all have a story, don't we?
It's great.
Yeah, we all have a story.
Yeah, but so I didn't want to be one of those guys that walked into the gym January 1st and says, I've got a New Year's resolution. And then
there's two ways to look at
25 days later, I never show up again. Yeah, no.
There's two ways to look at that. It's like, do I want to be that guy? And some guys would look at that and say, yeah, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to show up the first and I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stay. And they might. But if you don't, if day 25 comes and you stop going. So anyway, I'm getting a jump start on it. I want to get control of my eating. I want to get control of my weight. But those are side notes to what I wanted to talk about. So one of the things I've decided to do for the new year, and I've already started, is I want to get through the Bible in a year. And I don't just want to get through the Bible in a year. I want to, while I'm getting through it, I want to study it and get through it and understand it in a year. And so that's going to be probably my top main focus this next year, is to do that. And so I thought I'd bring that up, at the end of our show here. I just wanted to, I would highly recommend that, whatever it is that people decide they want to do, pick something and try it. We've got this New Year's resolution thing, and at the gym they call them the resolutioners. Yeah. They start on the 1st and they don't come back at the end of the month. But try it anyway. Do it anyway. I don't care if it's the gym. I don't care if it's, getting in touch with God, if it's just better in your life, doing something with your hands every week, whatever it is. Do something to better yourself,
I love that. That's really good.
So yeah, I'm going to try and go through the Bible in a year.
Partly pride to say I don't want to be January 1. I just want to start now. It's mostly because, and I think that you're going to agree with this because you've already said it, is I've resolved already to do this regardless of
I think you and I are a lot alike. World tells we really don't like talking to people about what we're going to do, because it's like, that's kind of what I've just done. But
well, we're not the social media dudes that are like, I'm accountable because my 50,000 viewers saw it, and so therefore I'm going to do it. No,
that works. It does work, but
it works for some, not for all.
I think for you and I, it would make us like, I don't know. It would for me anyway. For me, I think I'd just like,
social media is going to consume too much of your day.
What's that Homer Simpson, The Simpsons, where he disappears into the bush?
Yeah, you're like backs away.
He backs away into the bush. It's kind of. I think that's how I'd turn out. But
there's the element there where there are a lot of other, half of the population, men in this world who, as of the last, and I don't want to belabor this point for a really long time because this could be a whole nother show, but have had their voice taken away from them.
Yeah.
And they've also had their skills taken away from them.
We're going to fix that.
They've had their manliness, their masculinity, so to speak, not manliness, but masculinity taken from them because it is off-putting to others who don't have it. And so when...
Too bad.
Absolutely. So then there's the real people, the blue-collar Americans that are the majority of our nation.
Yeah.
85% of our entire nation. We
absolutely are.
And yes, we're using technology. Yes, we're pushing to YouTube, and eventually we'll be Rumble. And we just started on Instagram to promote this as well. But really the purpose behind us pushing this to Instagram and therefore to YouTube is specifically to let other guys know we hear you.
Yeah,
we are you. We don't know as much as you do, so share with us. Yeah, about some things. But I follow other people on YouTube that do woodworking way better than I do. I just work with reclaimed wood, and they're working with high-end hardwoods, and they're doing precision work.
Yeah.
And yet are dorky and silly and funny about it all, and they've got millions of viewers. We're just getting started here. And we've got 27, 30 viewers.
We're going to start doing some shorts, too.
We're going to extract out of this, I think, is what we're going to do to start. But anyway, my point being, though, is that we just need to make this something that's approachable and attainable by the average guy.
Yep.
In that could be a young man, 18 to 21 years old, just who may not have a father figure in his life, or it could be the 65, 75-year-old man who is like, hey, let me share something with you. Go check this out, or let me call you or text you, and let's do something together. And we'll take our cell phones with us and we'll film it so that we're not the only ones that get to benefit from it, but that somebody else,
I love that idea.
Many others get to benefit from it as well.
Yeah. Maybe on that double date trip we're talking about up north, we'll have to do that.
It takes a whole different mindset for you and I to be able to take our phones and film ourselves doing regular life, because we didn't grow up thrill seekers, and
you and I didn't even have phones.
We're not selfish that way. No. We just do life. We just do it. And that's what I think the average guy does anyways, is you just go about life. Like, why do I need to draw attention to this?
Yep.
But when you find something specifically that is missing, and you think that perhaps we've got a little bit that could fill that little void, the only way to tell the world about it right now, or even just Americans about it right now, is this venue.
It is.
And we're going to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to share with you. Our hearts are not to be billionaires by YouTube, but rather to talk about the things that are usually faux pas to talk about.
To be blue-collar Americans.
And not be ashamed about that.
Just be average,
And to be honest with you, that's
and to let the average know that there's other average out there. We're here. We're listening. We hear you,
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, with that, we'll let you guys go. It's been a little over an hour, and we will meet you again sometime soon. We apologize for not having had a show for the last 2 to 3 weeks, but
that's my fault.
Life gets in the way. Holidays and schedules of kids and travel time, etc. Loss of employment and gain of employment, but hasn't started, and the economy crashing with real estate as to what your world is about right now.
Yeah.
But we're still trying. So if you have seen this video...
We'll never stop trying.
If you've seen this video and you think that somebody else might benefit from just the casual conversation that Paul and I have had, share that video. Send us a note. Like it. Comment on it. Click on the bell so that it reminds you when we post another video to share it right along down the road to somebody else as well. If you have any comments or questions, please drop us a note. We really want to hear from you. So until next time, I'm Aaron.
I'm Paul, and you guys, I can't agree with Aaron more. Let's make our voices heard. So
that's right. Until next time, guys, have a great day.